Thank you, ladies, for joining me in this discussion. So I think I'll get right to the topic of discussion. I'll reiterate once again. The topic is that are there any invisible barriers for women to move to leadership position, to leadership roles? And I think I'm just going to start, with just putting this out there that, it's a fact that with more and more women are getting educated, they're getting access to schools and college education, they're joining workforces, they're acing at the professional level. But it's also a fact that at the macro level, what one sees is that the representation of women at the management level or at the board level is still does not reflect the number of women who are joining the workforce. But what we have here is a group of amazing lawyers with us who are working at the management level and heading their domains at their respective workplaces in different capacities. And each of them have their own unique journey to the level that they have reached and that they're occupying today. So what I want to do today is not look at it from a macro level, but look at it from a micro level, from a personal level. I want to hear from each of them today that, what's their personal take on this question. And when I mean personal take, what I mean is that, were there any invisible barriers that they faced as women while they were moving to a leadership role in the respective places that they are today. And we are going to listen to their story from the perspective of how they navigated their workplace, what were the barriers, if there are any mindset shifts that they made, support system that they developed to reach where they are. And I think I'm going to open the floor by inviting Monica, who is the GM legal for Leela Palaces, Hotels and Resorts. And Monica, starting with you and your personal take on this question.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Now, this is so real that there are invisible barriers. And of course, I will take you through my personal journey, which is full of fraught with challenges and I've overcome. Of course, when we come out of our, school, we are not taught that this is what we are going to face. But deep within, there are these underlying forces which we have to tackle as we reach the mid-level. So initially, of course, the phase can be very smooth because we are all learning. This is a phase where, we are not really in a power struggle. But yes, once you reach the mid-level and you are, rising up and to the next level, then you start seeing that, yes, there are these invisible barriers. And I think my personal journey, it has been immensely, seen that I have immense support not only from my mentors who have been there for in each stage. There have been immense support from the family, and of course the self-confidence that that needs to be there every step of the way, because you have to take up the challenge every step of the way, because our society is male dominated, and in each struggle, whether it is in your law firm or whether it is in your corporate world, it is there. So it is very real. And you have to prove yourself, continue to prove yourself with perseverance, with patience. And yes, the support becomes hugely important. And I think that's where and that's the reason why, I faced right from when I started my career from the law firm to the corporate world. I need to thank my mentors and the support that I got from, and of course, the blessing, I must say. There are a lot of blessings and a bit of, I would say, good luck that I got.
Yeah. You mentioned that there were, and you mentioned that there is a support system, but there are also certain invisible barriers which are there, like which become visible over a period of time. Could you maybe elaborate on something that you may have faced in terms of going through it, or maybe the mindset shift that you needed to go through to go further, to get further and grow?
Yeah. So, the basic difference that you feel that as you grow, as you want to rise up the ladder, is the emotional and the leadership style that women have. So, the main weaknesses, which is actually taken as an excuse, is that one, you will not, as a woman, you will not be able to keep up with the life and personal life and your work balance, or it could be your demanding of the job, the timelines. That's something that male employees want to take up as an excuse. But with the confidence and the capability that you have to continue to prove them wrong. So every step of the way, you have to show perseverance. You have to have that confidence that yes, you can do it. You have to take up the challenge. So
True.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think one thing that you brought in, I'm just going to quickly touch on it, is you said that there's a difference in the leadership style, which sometimes workplaces do not identify as a positive trait. What I understand. So, what's your take on that? Like, what is the leadership? But you have grown, in the career, in your career. So, do you think, in terms of leadership style, what exactly is the best way to grow as?
Yeah. So I think women, as they are perceived, our leadership styles are definitely different because we have the understanding. We work with in our own interpersonal relationships with our family. We know how to deal with people, how to connect, how to negotiate, how to work with different and diverse kind of people. So there is definitely a more nurturing, caring, and yes, very, very aggressive also, because when you have to keep up with the timeline, you have the aggression, but also the adaptability, that you understand that what your team or what your a team person may kind of challenges that person may be facing, whether it's in personal life or in professional life. So I think definitely our women leadership styles are more better,
More inclusive. I
more
what I
inclusive.
understand is
Yes.
more inclusive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think I'm going to come to Mamta, following up from Monica, where she stopped. And so Mamta is the general counsel at Diageo India. And Mamta, over to you, your personal experience with this question and what's your take on this?
I think you might find, Esha, that a lot of what we are going to say is somewhat repetitive because our life experience may not be
Definitely,
different.
but I think certain things are definitely going to come out. I'm going to pick that up on the second round.
Probably. So what I was thinking actually is I would probably put it down to three big things. And I haven't experienced them as barriers, but I can see how they could be potential barriers. So I'll talk a bit about three things, I think. The first one is, oftentimes, and I see this play out in the world today as well, it may be a tough or demanding job, or it may be a sales role that requires a lot of travel. Oftentimes, the manager is a bit concerned, like Monica said, can she do the job if I hire a woman? So, should I just default to a gentleman because it might be better assurance of getting a good performance and not having to deal with, no, I have children, I need to go home, etc., right? And I think to overcome this, it's quite important for the male managers as well as actually the female people who are putting their hands up for these roles to have role models. So the more there are women in positions that have not been there before, the more there are women in leadership positions, the more managers see there are women in unconventional roles. I say unconventional not because they can't do it, but because it's not very common to see them in those roles.
Yeah.
The more it starts to feel like this is not hard. Others have done it. She can do it as well. And then it becomes more a competence conversation. So I would say the first thing which can overcome this barrier of, this supposed the supposed stereotype that, you know, a woman perhaps has to put her family first and is not always career focused, right? So the way I think to overcome that is to really have more role models. If you can look up, I can look up and see that someone is actually doing a role that I thought was quite difficult, that I feel hope that I can put my hand up for it. And similarly, my manager feels hope to hire in those roles as well, right? But connected to that, of course, is you also want to be joining the right organizations. You don't want to be joining an organization where there isn't an effort or focus towards understanding different requirements of different genders and actually different communities as well. Because equality of opportunity and progress isn't only about gender. I mean, we are today talking about gender because it's International Women's Day on 8th, but honestly, there are many communities out there who probably feel similarly to the women. So it's important, I think, to join the right organization where the effort is being made, and so the culture is perhaps more adaptable to having women in such roles. So that's the first thing. The second thing, if I think about my life experience, all the roles that I have gotten, which have been more senior, and this is my current role as a general counsel in Diageo India, and the one before, both have happened because someone sponsored me. Someone thought she has this potential. We think she can do the role, okay? And it's not about, and it wasn't because I had already done a similar role, because that's easier in some way. If you've done the role once, no one has to take a chance. They already know you can deliver or not, right? So they know the decision is informed. It's when you haven't done a role like this before that someone has to take a chance and say, can the potential translate into performance?
Yeah.
And so they have to kind of sponsor you and say, I'm willing to put my professional worth behind this person and say, I think she can do it, right? And I think, therefore, the sponsorship piece is important, right? Sorry, my dog is also excited. Okay. The sponsorship piece is important. But how do you get sponsors then is the immediate next question, right? I have to say most of my sponsors have been women. And I think and a large reason why they have felt more comfortable sponsoring me perhaps than my male managers has been because they've been through the journey. They know what it takes and they know it can be done. So it's a bit of the same. If you have seen it happen before, you can see that it will happen again. And it's easier for you to make a meritocratic decision. How have I earned sponsors? I haven't gone out with a board stand roadside saying I'm willing to engage with sponsors. Please come become a sponsor. I think really this is where your work speaks for you and your personality speaks for you and your leadership speaks for you, right? So I always feel there are 3 traits that work quite well to embody your leadership. I think it's important to be authentic. It's important to be who you are. And that doesn't mean you have to wield that like an axe. You don't need to. You can be smart, you can be gentle, you can be flexible and adaptable, but you have to be who you are because firstly, it's too much effort to not. Second, people can see through it. Nobody wants to be following leaders who are fake, right? They want to be genuine. That's when you inspire people and motivate them. The second one for me,
he's very excited to hear you.
She is very excited.
She's very excited.
Exactly. My apologies. The second one for me is really around courage. Oftentimes, we can be our biggest barriers. We can say to ourselves that my potential ends here. I can't do anymore. Or this job is too hard. I've not done it before. Maybe I shouldn't put my hand up for this. Or, oh my God, I now have children. I need to stay at home. No one is telling us. There are families where people are telling us, right? But there are equally families where people are not telling us. We are telling ourselves because we are reading this narrative that we have imbibed. So I always feel courage is important. Courage to think differently. Courage to be open to different perspectives. Courage to ask questions and courage to follow your heart and do what you think will satisfy you, right? So that's the second one for me. The third thing I will say is excellence. You've got to be very, very good at what you do. Nobody becomes really senior or nobody becomes really successful without being really good. I mean, they're not perfect human beings, but they're good at what they do, right? So you have to be good at what you're doing. And I think connected to that is you have to have a real drive to push yourself and to raise the bar for yourself all the time. So that's the only way you keep up with the world. It's dynamic, it's changing, but you not only have to do that for yourself, but also I think for the people around you. So I would say this is the second one for me, right? How do you get sponsors? What kind of a person you are, how you come across. The last one I'll say is allies, and you just cannot underestimate the importance of allies, whether it is at work or it's at home. So if I think about myself, we are always saying work-life balance. What is work-life balance? There isn't any, to be honest. It has taken me a while to come to this conclusion, but frankly, someone once said it to me and said work-life integration is perhaps the way you want to talk about it and think about it, right? How can you integrate both in a way that it allows you to manage your work, but also manage your life effectively? And that integration tapestry will look very different for different people. The way I do it will be very different from what you will do, Esha, or from what Manorama or Fereshte will do, right? So there is no one equation that works for everyone. The thing I think that's important to remember is, we should be kind to ourselves. We are trying to do a lot, and oftentimes we are trying to do a lot in a world that we may not have as much support as we would like at home or even at work. It's not really a level playing field, right? So I think be kind to yourself. Treat yourself like you would your best friend. And sometimes you'll drop the ball at work. You should be smart enough to realize that you should drop the ball on things that are not critical. That's important. Sometimes you'll drop the ball at home. Again, you should be smart enough to realize that you're dropping the ball on something that's not critical. It's okay to order pizza one day and not have a home cooked meal. It's probably not okay to miss something that's important to your child, where their child wants your presence. So you will have to balance it. But honestly, be kind to yourself. And I think in that zone, I'll also say, just as I have succeeded because of allies and sponsors, I think I have a duty to be an ally and to sponsor people. So that's important to me. And I must make sure, therefore, that I can not only encourage people, but also find them opportunities. Let me stop. My dog is barking.
All right. I think I'll come back to Mamta in a bit, but a couple of very good points. And I absolutely agree with you. I think the term work-life balance is a misnomer. Work-life integration is a better term, given the fact that, one has to, we are in the professional field. So we are there because, one is there because they want to grow forward. There is no other way. I mean, you are in the professional field because you want to excel. And one has to take everything together in a way that it integrates for you, and that's something that I think as a principle works. It could be different on a case-to-case basis, but as a principle, it stands for everyone to implement in the manner that they want to. I think so. I'm going to come to Manorama next, and so Manorama is the Director of Financial Crime and Compliance at Capgemini India. And I want to come to Manorama and ask you your take on this question, Manorama. What were the barriers that you face, and how has your journey been? Manorama, I would request your audio is...
Oh, is it any better now?
Yeah.
Sure, thanks. I think I was saying that Mamta covered most of it, then we could go for coffee now. Right. Yeah, so I think my perspective, Monica shared a little bit about it, is unless it gets into your brain about the barrier, it is not there. Right. So I think it's a conscious effort to not have the barrier in your brain, right? Especially when you move from a middle management to the senior management level, it takes a lot of effort and intended changes with oneself as a leader in any of the organization, right? To ensure that these barriers don't get into your mind and lose a focus of what you want to be and where you want to be, right, in the long run. That's my first comment. With regard to my experience in terms of barriers, I think I would want to really comment in a very different way, because the numbers at the board level speaks whether we have barriers or not. So let's leave the comment there, right? I'm not talking about middle managers and the diversity bunch of people whom we hire, but I think at a board level we can do better. For more decision-making roles, and also ensuring that these decision-making roles go to the next level of managing the entire business capacity in any of the organization or any of the institution, right? There is no question about the competency. We spoke briefly yesterday as well, right? That was a very interesting discussion what we had. Competency and capability discussion, I think we have overcome it through the years. There is no question once anyone need to ask about why women are not there in board, etc. But what I really see
and this is my personal experience, is I think there's a laser lens when it comes to women leaders moving up to the boards. You see, there is additional pressure of showcasing that capability and competency. The minute you have 4 nominees and one is a woman, I think there's always a focus light on that one nomination. And then there's a lot of pressure, right? I think that is my, entire experience. And I wonder, it's very interesting to see. It's also a mix of culture and also a natural upbringing of a leader to the boardrooms, right? So that natural evolution is not happening yet, right? And that is very disappointing for me today. That it will take time for us to get to the very natural evaluation where women are naturally in the board system and not reduced with the numbers and not circumstanced with the additional scrutiny and additional skill set and competencies, etc. I think that is a greatest pressure I think one go through when you're moving up the ladder. I think the other things is creating your own set of board of directors. I think Mamta spoke about it, Monica spoke about it, about the allies and people who can talk for your work, right? Yesterday I was talking that, let your work speak, right? Make yourself indispensable with the knowledge what you have today, right? Nothing can beat the knowledge and the attitude towards what you want to have in a very right way, right? Challenge the status quo in a right way to bring a change in system, what it takes to get the right business results. There is no problem in that. There should not be any problem, right? If you have a right CEOs and right stakeholders on the board, I don't think so anyone will have any problem in bringing any of the issues in the board and spoken about it and then getting resolved it ideally. I think these are the couple of things which I see can be, modified when you grow up in the ladder. And that's my experience as well. When you try to put your hand in change management, I think you're challenging the entire status quo, right? And it's very sensitive. And it's very sensitive when you say challenge, then you're kind of also touching the beliefs of the other people. You know what I'm saying? And they're all human beings. Right way I'm saying. While you're not negating their belief, it takes a lot of energy for you to say that this intended change is going to believe a lot of positive results, right? I think that is a lot of energy. That is a lot, and especially when a woman in the board, I think it takes that extra coffee for you to put it in a mug and say them and make your listings and present to the boardroom that you mean business. You really want to see things moving because here's what it is, right? And shaking that takes a lot of energy, which should not be a case. You know what I'm saying? That should not be. It should be very natural evaluation. Why should you really want to, tell people, hear me out, I'm right? You know what I'm saying? Okay. Yeah, you are right because you're hired, right? So that, I think those are the changes, really, really, which I went through when I went up the ladder. I think what really helped me to come over is your stakeholders and your people who are your cheerleaders for each other. As much possible, I put up my hand and support many, many young aspiring women as well. So do I get a support from people? I call them my board of directors, my HR people, people who work with me. My son himself, sometimes, he do understand if his studies gets a little, Mamta was saying, sometimes we suck at both, right? Working and being a good mom or a good daughter, good sister, or good, a neighbor sometimes.
Family
right?
person,
Yeah, and it's absolutely fine to be vulnerable, to be who you are. I think taking away that lens is very important, right? Don't scrutinize too much for who we are. It's absolutely, guys, leave it alone, right? Yeah.
Correct. So I think, I'm going to, I'll move on to the other panelists. But my one question to, all of you, again, would be as to you spoke a very good point about how the culture and the natural evolution is very important for women to be accepted, included as a leader, even if they are at a leadership position. So what's your take on the diversity and the initiative inclusions that are, diversity and inclusion initiatives, the D&I initiatives that organizations are very much into these days, and that's the talk of the town. Companies are putting in a lot of effort into that. So does that really do make any change? How is it happening? Like, what is your take on it? I'm going to come back on that but I'm going to move on to Fereshte. So Fereshte Sethna is the founder and managing partner at DMD Advocates Mumbai. And Fereshte, coming to you, again, so people, all three other lawyers have shared their own experience, but I want to listen from you, what has been your take on the barriers, or if there was any barrier per se?
Well, thank you, Esha. Let me start by saying that all of my three colleagues have been part of the corporate ladder.
Correct.
I think therein lies that very fundamental distinction between what it is that they will encounter necessarily as against what we, who are hardcore litigators, practitioners in courts of law, and negotiating for clients in the boardroom and outside of multiple different sort of arenas. We clearly come from, I think, a very, very distinct experience. I have to start with saying that. Obviously, at the time when I entered the profession, there was really none of that pecking order that you see in law firms today, where everybody wants to get to that new position and all of that. For us, we were the peon, the filing clerk, the stenographer. We did everything from from scratch, whether it was photocopying or whatever it was. So frankly, if you were prepared to participate and lift that burden, as it were, whether it was the peon's burden or my senior partner, who I was ultimately interning with at that point in time, you were part of the team. It was just a given. And if you had a supporting senior, and when I say senior, I mean in the form of the person that you effectively first work with, I think that is that critical person who shapes your future. If that senior permits you the luxuries and indulgences of what would effectively be freedom of thought and speech, as it were, and expression, I think, frankly, you don't need to turn back after that. Because, if you've been given that degree of liberty, if you like, you can effectively go through the rest of your professional years knowing fully well what it is that was inculcated in you at that very initial stage in the profession. And therefore, I come from the space where I was given that freedom. I was inculcated a spirit of independence. I have to say that I come from a background where my grandmother back in the 30s and 40s was a working woman. So I am really, in that sense, from a family where my mother is a lawyer. She's still a lawyer. She's part of the law firm. So there was a clear direction finder, if you like. And therefore it was, is the legal profession really a male bastion? Do I really know that? I did not know that existed. I was thoroughly oblivious to it, and I remain oblivious to anyone who says that. Yes, of course, there may be 98 lawyers in the courtroom who are male, dressed in a certain way, and then there are 2 women there. What does that matter? It never mattered to the judge. It never mattered to the client. So who is it mattering to? I frankly don't understand the concepts of the gender issue, if you like, from the legal profession, because let's not forget that the Constitution tells us that we are all equal before the law.
Absolutely, yeah.
And for any lawyer to believe that we are not, I think would be an absolute anathema. And for any lawyer to think that we need to be talking about, ensuring that in the courtroom, I'm not talking about a corporate space now, because that is completely a different zone, and obviously I have not been there, and I have to tell you that I know very little about it. And the reality is that in the area of work that we do, it is, as all of my 3 colleagues before me spoke to, it is all about your work speaking for itself. I believe Mamta said that, Manorama said that, Monica said that, and I'm quite sure even Akanksha after me is going to say that, and I'm sure you, Esha, would say the same thing.
Definitely.
So where I come from, I think, firstly, invisible barrier of your own making in your own head. Get rid of it. Life is simple. To the extent that you think someone may be conspiring against you because you're a woman, I frankly think you need to find a way to deal with it. And the fact is that to the extent that there will be 98 lawyers in the courtroom who are male, or maybe 99, if there's a judge who's listening to you, it really doesn't matter. And why is the judge listening to you? The judge is listening to you because you have something to say. And guess what? You may actually be better prepared than the next person. So if you are, that's what your client wants to see anyway. So I don't think one should permit hurdles and barriers which were perhaps a thing of the past insofar as concerns the legal profession. I'm not saying it was never there, but I have to say that my experience is I have not experienced it. And I would strongly encourage all young aspiring lawyers who intend to get to courts of law and make that their forte to effectively be in court and to get what needs to get done in a court stay, to know that if you can do what you do best in the courtroom, nobody and nothing can come in your way, because it's you and the judge. There's nobody else in between. Either you get your point across or you don't. And you may not be able to get it across for a variety of reasons, but it's certainly nothing to do with the fact that you are a woman.
All right, I think that's a very fair point, Fereshte, and I think what the two common points that I've understood is coming out of this discussion till now is two things. One is the importance of having allies, in terms of knowing and having and making sure, being very objective about knowing more and more people, more and more women, who have taken up leadership roles either in your family or in the profession, or anybody else that you know of. That experience counts. When you know that, then those barriers that are traditionally there, that one step you grow further. And I think the second step would be to get over your own narrative, get over your own barrier about, okay, am I facing this barrier because I'm a woman, or because there is something I need to do better at the work, or I need to do in terms of the work that is being asked of me, should I do something more, should I take more leadership initiative? It's basically about the own barriers that one needs to get over. So coming to Akanksha, Akanksha is a lawyer, and she is a business development and digital marketing specialist at Trilegal. So Akanksha, coming to you, we have heard four lawyers speaking before you, and a couple of common pointers have come up. But what's your take on this topic from your perspective?
I think they all have already covered what I had in mind. So my experience is a mixed bag. I am a lawyer, as you've just mentioned, and creating my niche in business development side of law. So this is all entirely new, and I had literally no one to look up to in the legal,
profession
segment. So this is something that I created on my own. So that is one side of it, and I think that leadership, as we were just talking about, it's not that you can be a leader in your workspace and not in your personal sphere. So talking about that I also became a parent during a pandemic. In both these scenarios, in my work sphere and in my professional front, there was just no blueprint available to me. So we had to create everything so there were a lot of negotiations in my personal front and at work, and Mamta and everyone said that you need to have a lot of allies and support system to help you reach where you want to. And definitely like how Fereshte mentioned, that you need to dissect stories from fact. You cannot keep coming back to that, oh, I'm a woman, so probably this is happening to me because I'm a woman and it's gender specific issue. I don't buy that point. You need to dissect both the things. And what else? Yeah. So about the challenges, I think Fereshte, I completely agree with her that she mentioned that, you need to break those barriers. Initially, I thought it's all societal pressure when the pandemic hit us and I had to manage my kid. So I thought that, the society wants me to be the prime caregiver. And then eventually I realized it's just me. I just want to be that good girl. I want to carry that image, and that made me struggle a lot. Eventually I could realize, and I started accepting help. I think it's a tendency with us that we do not want to delegate work, or it's just me probably. So I think that's also a learning from this duration and from my experience so far. Of course, I have a long way to go. And other than that, on work-life choices, I think very initially in my career, someone very senior to me told me that life is all encompassing. You cannot segregate or have it in compartments that, this is work and this is life. It's all encompassing. You have to make choices in between. Sometimes work will take the upper hand. Sometimes it's the other way around. So I think, it's part and parcel.
No, sorry. I had one very specific question for you. You are a lawyer who transitioned into a very new role, which is not something that traditionally lawyers take up. That's also like, moving to a different role altogether. So how that shift that you made, right? That is also that shift. How was that for you in terms of moving?
So I'll tell you, Esha, there have been a lot of first times in my life. I'm a first generation lawyer. I come from a tier 2 city where not many women go out from that from that geography. They're not allowed to go out, and this is where I think Fereshte and I kind of disagree. I see that you need to be someone people look up to. You need to create that. You need to pave the way for others to find their passion, explore that there is so much more other than the typical stereotypical roles that society has defined for you. And of course then I transitioned to the BD side of the law, and initially I used to get raised eyebrows even from my colleague. I had a short stint at litigation, and then I shifted to the BD and digital marketing side of law. I was heading the com at Phoenix Legal, and then I transitioned to Trilegal. So very interesting journey, and of course I had no one to look up to, but I definitely had a lot of support system. Had that not been the case, probably I wouldn't be here sitting talking to you all and understanding different perspectives. So it's not just me. I think it takes entire village, to break that invisible barrier that you have in your head. So yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I think we are almost near time. So I think one common point that is coming across to me is the need to have allies at work, whichever part of the legal profession that you are at, be it at law firm, be it at a litigation, be it at a corporate level. And the second thing is the need of, and not the need, but the requirement of mentorship. Like, it takes up, and I'm not talking about at the family level, but at the work level, the mentors and the allies at the work level that needs to be built. So I'm going to, I want to ask each one of you, some tip to people who are listening to us, the audience who's listening to us, as to how do you build that? Like, what is the one thing that you will say that if somebody is growing in their career, how do you build that system? And I'll start with Mamta here. So Mamta, any closing tip for our audience here on this?
No, I'm going to repeat what I said already, which is be yourself. That does not need to be compromised. Whoever you are is good enough to succeed. The second thing I'll say is integrity is important. We are in a world where anything you say or do is going to be available for all mere eternity. Nothing gets wiped off of Twitter or LinkedIn, it appears, and it's almost impossible to wipe it off despite your best effort. So I would say, be yourself, but show integrity in all times, and not that you are making it up, but that is the person you are, right? And absolutely, always choose to challenge yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's the theme for this year's International Women's Day also, that choose to challenge whatever whatever barrier, like could be anything that that is there for your own self. Monica, coming to you on this allies and mentorship. Monica, your audio is off. Just
Sorry.
closing remarks on this.
So I was just saying that Mamta said it all. So it's your integrity, and it's how your confidence built up, everything put together. I think these are the closing lines from my end.
All right. Manorama.
If I understood right, you were actually seeking as to, how do you find your mentor or allies? Is that what?
Mentor and allies, like how do you build that? Because it's sometimes difficult for, and I'm not just saying for women, for anybody. Like it's difficult to know how to go about this. So any tip there in terms of?
Right. I think it's during the course of the time. Yeah, I don't think so. It is the relationship, the working relationship, or even a personal relationship, always takes time, isn't it? And it's typically built on all the qualities what everyone mentioned here. So I think one aspect which really worked well with me is trust and honesty. Right. With my mentor. It's always been trust and straightforward approach, and being very honest in my approach, right? Whether I go to him or her with specific questions, whether it's personal or profession, I give. Somebody said, "Don't be fake," right? That's absolutely fantastic. You have to be yourself for a mentor to guide you, be able to understand you, and also to be able to relate to the problem or to guide you to the next level. Right. I think 2 words from my end to sum up. Right. One is a trusted and honest relationship is what it takes to get a very good allies and mentors. Yeah.
All right. Fereshte.
Integrity. Mamta said it.
Yeah.
Monica said it. Manorama said it.
All of us.
It is the singular quotient. There is nothing short of that can work for you in this profession. And I don't think that is true of a lot of other professions, but it's certainly true of the legal profession. Because if you lack that level of integrity, the client is not going to be able to trust you. The judge is not going to be able to trust you. Your colleagues are not going to be able to trust you. And certainly your seniors will not trust you. So when I say your colleagues, I mean your peers, but obviously there's no one that is going to be able to trust what you say or do. So if you are a slippery customer, the legal profession is not the one. Bottom line.
So integrity, I think, would be the underlying factor here. Akanksha, what's your closing remarks on this?
I think, coming from my experience, I think you keep exploring and don't, segregate your work life from your life. You need to, understand yourself better and reach out. There are so many people who are going to help you understand. It's your career is going to be, it's a marathon actually. So the better and the earlier you understand yourself better and curate your environment accordingly, including your work environment, the better it's going to be. And don't Google stuff when you're reaching out to mentor. Ask specific questions and follow up.
Yeah, I think that's where being true and honest matters. Like, if you actually are seeking a mentorship, then you have to be true and honest about yourself and what exactly are you seeking from the mentor who you want some sort of guidance from. I think that's very important. I think we're almost, we're at time. Very enlightening discussion. I had a couple of more questions, but I think there is the time has passed and there's another conversation that's going to start soon. But thank you everyone for joining us. It has been a great experience listening to your experiences, and I hope the audience also has gained a lot of perspective on this. Over to you, BW team.